Is it possible that there is a rose that never wilts? Yes, there is, and I'll show you exactly how to create one. Isn't this gorgeous? Beautiful red rose, and in today's demo, I'm going to show you how to make this. It's really beautiful and it's really simple. This is all done with just one petal design. But before we start that, I want to show you the things that I feel are important for you to have success. Obviously, you're going to need a good quality ribbon, and we use one that is 1.5 inches wide, and we're going to be making it 3 inches long. So any good quality ribbon, and by good quality I mean that it's got a good shine to it. It's usually 100% polyester, even though they call it a satin ribbon, and it will have the ability to have some body to it. As you can see, it doesn't want to behave. So we do a lot of pinning. But that also tells you this is exactly the fabric that you want, the ribbon that you want. You're also going to need some matching thread. I always use, excuse me, a number 5 needle, and embroidery needle. And the reason I like this is because the eye here is real big, but it's not bulky, excuse me. So I'm able to get the thread through, and I can see it. That's the biggest thing for me. Then the other thing that I do all of my work with, when it's got to do with hand embroidery, anything like that, is something that's called thread magic. And it feels like it's kind of like a paraffin. I'm not sure just what it is, but it doesn't stick, it doesn't stain. It's wonderful. And how I use this, get that out of there. How I use this is I have my thread on my needle, and then I just very gently run this through, and what it does is it does provide some kind of a barrier so that it reduces the friction between the thread and the fabric. But look, you guys, it doesn't leave any kind of mark. Even when I use it on fabric, it doesn't leave any mark at all. It's wonderful. I love that stuff. The thing is, when I'm working with these things, these kinds of threads, or using these ribbons, a lot of times what you'll see on other ones is that you'll see, number one, that this is a straight edge, for example, like this. And the instructor will have, for example, a heat source. Let's say this is a candle or a lighter, and they light it, and then they wave this back and forth, and the heat will sear this edge, and it stops it then from fraying. That's a good idea. You can do that if you want. I choose not to, because many of the classes that I teach around flowers involves children, and I don't want them around the flame. So I use pinking scissors, and it does exactly the same thing. It reduces the ability for that to fray. So I have these that are important things for me: the pinking scissors, the thread magic, making sure that I've got a number 5 embroidery needle, and then finally a product called buckram. And what I do is I cut a small piece of this out. This is the buckram, maybe a 1 inch by 1 inch, somewhere in there. And I use that on the back to stabilize everything. Once I've got all my petals sewn together, I want to be sure that I can stabilize it. So underneath this, there is a piece of buckram, and it keeps all of this together so that it doesn't fall apart. And then I finish it off with, of course, a piece of felt. Okay, so you have everything that you need. Now let's go ahead and make this. And I tell you guys, it is really very easy to do. So I have my thread ready to go. I've run it through the thread magic. And we're going to start. We've cut 14 of these. It's 1.5 inch ribbon wide, and it's 3 inches in length. And I've cut 14 of those that we're going to need to complete this rose. So if there is a right or a wrong side to what you are using, then you're going to want to work on the inside, not the shiny outside. But if in this case, it doesn't matter. They're both the shiny side. So in this particular ribbon, it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to show you how I put one petal together. I take the 3 inch piece of ribbon and I fold it in half and just do a nice finger press so I know where the center is on this 3 incher. Then I'm going to take this point and bring it down. I'm wanting to bring it so that I've got a nice point here, but that it's also, I have a parallel line here to this one. So let me do this again. I've folded it over. I'm going to press it so that I finger press it so that I have a mark where the center point is. You can kind of see it. Okay, now I'm going to take the top and I'm going to bring it down here on the right side. I want to make a nice point right there. And I want to be aware that I'm keeping this very, very straight. I want this line right here to be the same with this, parallel lines. So I'm going to put a pin in here because ribbon just wants to have it has a mind of its own on how it wants to stay or not stay. So rather than fight with it, let's work with it. All right, so I've got one down. Now I'm going to repeat it on this side, but I want to show you something. I am not going to fold it so that this closes. I do not want this area closed. I want it to be open because I need that. You'll see later on as we're putting this entire rows together. So manipulate it so that you've got that opening. Manipulate it so that you've got that opening, but you also have a nice fine point down here. See how it's a nice point? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this side, and I actually tack everything down for one main reason. Like I said, ribbon, like I said, ribbon has a mind of its own, and it won't necessarily stay where I put it unless I pin it and then tack it. So I've tacked that down. I'm going to go to the back. Now I don't have to worry about that piece. So now I'm going to fold this one over the top. I'm bringing it to the center, and I'm going to overlay it a little bit over the center point. I become aware of the crease that I have here, and everything looks even down here at the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and tack this part down. And yes, I have a black mark on my fingernail. I was using a black Sharpie and forgot that I didn't get it all off. So it's not a bruise, it's just a black mark. All right, so this one's down. See how I've got that now nice and tight? I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to take my needle and take the thread to the back. Take the pin out. Okay, so now I'm ready. I've got this one all done, and I'm going to do this side. Now, again, be aware that you want this opening. So I'm going to hold this down, and I'm going to tack it just like I did on the other side, just so it's one less thing that I have to fight or hassle with while I'm putting this little petal together. This goes fast once you get into the movement of doing this repetitively, because you've got 14 to 15 of these little petals to do. Okay, can you see now how I've got it together? And I'm going to still have that opening that I need at the top. So I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to tack everything down. I don't have to worry about this, but I'm going to bring it to your attention anyway because I'm kind of a fetish. I have a fetish about this. I'm going to tuck this under. I just don't, I want it to look as finished, even though you're never, ever going to see that. I know that this way, there's no way that that little ruffle could possibly sneak up and cause any kind of a distraction on the petal. Just, you don't have to do that, but it's just what I do. All right, I got it tacked down. Okay, and I'm going to go on and finish this with all 14 or 15 of the petals. I have all 15 of these done. I say 14 or 15. It really depends on how many you're going to need, but I'd rather that you had 14 to 15 done. You may need more and you'll have to create more. Otherwise, you should do pretty good with either 15 or 14, whichever. So you'll hear me repeat that again and again. All right, now I want you to turn all these over to the smooth side because now we're going to put them together. So I'm going to take two side by side. And we're going to be stitching it down here at the bottom. Okay, we're going to tack these two together. I'm going to put a little tack right here because I don't want this to come flipping open. Just a little tack. And I'll be doing the same thing back here, putting a little tack right there. Now, the one thing I want you to pay attention to is here's your imaginary halfway line. Remember we talked about that in the beginning to get the right fold on the petal? Now, when you put these two together, I usually try to go right here, halfway between this point, and start by putting it right there. I don't necessarily have to have it be half, because that's going to be just, I don't need to do that. I want a little bit more of a leeway so that when I wrap this, it'll be more interesting. Now I'm going to hold this and I'm going to show you what I mean. Imagine that I have all these done and I'm at the very beginning of putting this rose together. And at the very beginning, I fold it rather tightly. And then as I bring the second one around, can you see what happens? You're starting to get the fold of the inside of the rose. So I hope that makes sense to you. I'm going to go ahead and start it, and you can kind of watch as I do a couple of these. Now remember that what I'm doing is I'm using the smooth side and putting them together with the smooth side, not the open side. And I tacked this down right here. Here's the imaginary line of where the halfway mark is on the petal. But I moved it over a little bit to the right. It doesn't have to be right on top of it. And then here, rather than coming halfway between these two, from this point to this point, I came down a little bit further and I tacked this all down. Got little tacks there and there. Now in the back, I want to show you what happens. Imagine these are the first two of the 15 that we put together. I'm going to be rolling, and I'll show you this later, the very beginning of this rather tightly, because this is the center of the rose. And as I do that, you can see that the inside of the rose is starting to appear. See how those those petals are important? But I also want to be sure that this is not too loose out here. So just to be on the kind of safe side, you might say, on the back here, I'm just going to put a tiny tack there. And what I'm hoping to achieve is to keep this tacked together so that when it curves, it doesn't come open like this. It curves just a little bit, so these two are intact. So I'm going to tie this off, and then I'll go to another one and show you how we put a couple more of these together so you can kind of get the hang of this. Come on. Now I have it together. I'll tie it off in a minute, but I want to show you what happens. When I start to curve this, because see how they're in the back? There's no real big gap there, and that's what I'm looking for. So once again, I'll demonstrate for you. Let's imagine this is the very beginning of the rose where we cover it, we coil it rather tightly, because this is the beginning of the rose. And you can see what starts to happen. It takes on a beautiful form. I hope you see what we're going to be ending up with, and we're going to continue to wrap. Now notice that in the back, which is where I'm going to do most of the work from now on, as this coil gets bigger and bigger when I've got all 15 together, I'll be putting it together in the back. And it's put together rather loosely, so you have a lot of leeway. Like I said, I'm going to tie this off and continue. I'll be back when I've got all 15 together. Okay, okay, so I have 14 of these together. I have my little spare over here in case I need it. Remember, this is the smooth side down. And I'm going to start over here on this side. Excuse me. And I'm going to do the first coil kind of tight, because this represents the inside of the rose where the bud would be. And that's about the only place where I'm going to wrap it pretty tight. So I wrapped it twice. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. And I'm going to do a little bit of a tack from the back. That's where most of our tacking is going to take place. In fact, all of it. So I don't need it to be tightly woven together, but I do need it to be tacked so that it can maintain its circle. Now that's about all I'm going to do to that for right now. So I'm going to put this over here to the side, and I'm going to do another wrap. And look at it. And I like what I see so far. So I'm going to turn it over. Find my needle and thread. Now see how loose all this is? I'm not doing this. If I make it tight like this, you can see that it just kind of loses its, I guess, making it look like it's real. So I've tacked it once. I'm going to wrap it, but it's loose. And now I'm thinking, you know what, I think I want to tack right there. And if I look straight down in here, there's holes. I can see what's going on in there. So it's not really tight, but it's secure. So here's my thread. I'm attaching it to the bottom, pulling this up a little bit so I can grab it. Bring this through. Make sure I haven't lost anything here. It probably seems pretty freeform to you, but it does make sense that you're creating a coil, but you don't want it to be so tight that you really can't see the beauty of the rose. So that's all I'm going to do to that one right now. Okay, and then I'm going to wrap it some more. And it's very, very loose. And I'm going to tack this down. The only thing I really have to be aware of here is I want to keep the bottom here even. I don't want it jumping all over. So a little more of a tacking here. By the way, this is all going to be stabilized when I put it on a piece of buckram. So it's flexible right now because we want that effect with the petals to be open. But you don't have to worry about it falling apart. That's not going to happen. Okay, I'm going to probably stop here and tie this off and get another needle and thread to finish this up. I'm going to start this part of the video to show you where we're going to end up. I have to still put all this together in the back, but isn't this going to turn out to be beautiful? So let's continue with this. I've got my thread and my needle, and I'm going to run this through the Thread Magic, which to me is an absolute lifesaver. It reduces the friction between the thread and any fabric or ribbon that you're working with. So let's continue on with this. Now I'm going to be pretty much paying attention to things in the back here. I think I'll start here. It looks like it's a mess in the back because it is. But that's okay. When you get it all together, it is absolutely beautiful. So let's get this one. Let's see, we'll go here. And again, see how loose this is? You don't need it to be super tight. You just want to make sure that they're secure together. You just kind of guess where you want it. At least I do. My goal is to make sure that they are attached, that they're not too tight, but they're not falling all over the place. And to make sure that they are secure in the end, don't forget I mentioned all of this is going to be glued down to a piece of buckram and felt so that the base is very secure. And then you can attach it to anything that you want. Your purse, your quilt. I love this on quilts. This rose is so beautiful. And it's beautiful in all different colors, not just red. But I've made the yellow, I've made red, I've made white. I think I'm going to try and do an ombre, kind of several different colors. Get the ombre ribbon and do it. I haven't done it yet, but the ombre ribbons are so, so beautiful. I think a rose would be outstanding. All right, I'm coming to the end here. And I will probably do some maneuvering once I've got this last piece down. To see if there's anything else that I need to put together or tighten or shape it one way or another. Okay, so I want you to see this is loose, but at the same time, it's holding it all together. Isn't that beautiful? When you look at an object like this, and you look at it as a whole unit, you don't see any flaws, but I can tell you I'm looking at this and I can see things that I could have done better. In fact, okay, here's the one we just finished, and I've got the glue gun ready to go. I glued the buckram onto the felt, and now I'm going to give this a pretty good dose of glue, making sure I go out to the edges. And put that right here. This one's a little looser than this one, and that's fine. You can see everyone's going to be a little bit different. And then finally, in conclusion, I wanted to show you 4 different roses, the same number of petals, done the same way, and look at the different sizes they came out to be. It'll just, as you do more of these, it will change in size as you do them. Any of them are absolutely beautiful. If you liked this video, I hope that you will subscribe. I thoroughly enjoyed making it for you, and I hope that you got something out of it. Also, when you subscribe, you really do help our channel a lot. It helps us to continue to bring to you the very best in art quilting techniques, designs, and artists. Thank you again for watching.